Dismantling the Department of Education. President Trump says it is time to remove the federal government from the business of educating America's children.
So we're ranked number 40 out of 40 schools, right? We're ranked number 1 in cost per pupil. So we spend more per pupil than any other country in the world. And we're ranked at the bottom of the list. We're ranked very badly. And what I want to do is let the states run schools.
What has caused this? What needs to be done? Nicole Neily is president and founder of Parents Defending Education. Nicole, you recently testified before Congress on the state of American education. So what did you tell members of the House Education and Workforce Committee? Why has it gotten worse?
Unfortunately, the state of our education system is not great. We saw the NAEP scores that came out recently showing that, surprise, surprise, American school children are not doing very well. They're not reading or doing math or proficiency. And in fact, the students that were most impacted by that are actually the lowest performers. And so the bottom really fell out. It's really devastating because you think we basically have a lost generation of children. Because if you can't read by 3rd grade, your chances for success in life, sadly, are greatly diminished because that's such a core skill. And so this really merits significant investigation and attention. And it's something that, frankly, over the past 4 years, the Biden administration has spent money and paid attention to everything but the quality of children's education.
Well, it seems like it's a matter of priorities. So let's get into some specifics here. You testified that intrusive mental health counseling, telling children they're in the wrong body, is not a good use of tax dollars. It destroys parent-child relationships. So tell us more.
I mean, can you imagine that this is how our tax dollars are being used through mental health counseling, through school-based health centers, and just ongoing social emotional learning? We have seen gender ideology inserted into basically every aspect of children's education. I mean, I spoke to a parent a couple years ago who said that he asked his kindergarten teacher, we're Catholic, we'd like to opt children out of gender materials. And they said, we can't, it's in everything. He said, what do you mean it's in everything? They're 5. It was in math, it was in social studies, it was in history. And so when you have something like that that's so pervasive going into very, very young ages, I mean, these are children who still believe in the tooth fairy. Yet now we have people who, elected officials and then also school officials who are determined to rip our children's innocence away. It's really mind-boggling that that is considered a viable use of taxpayer dollars.
Well, we know that parental rights is one big reason Glenn Youngkin was elected governor right here in Virginia. So what are your concerns about creating division, not only between child and parent, but also between students over race, sex, and equity?
Certainly. I mean, when we see DEI programming put in place, there was a great meta study done by a group called the Network Contagion Research Institute. And it showed that, surprise, surprise, when you teach children to view themselves as others through the lens of immutable characteristics, race, sex, etc., it creates divisions between people and it leads to worse interpersonal relationships. And so to watch all these districts over the past several years spend millions upon millions of dollars. I mean, all of that ESSER money that was supposed to be used to reopen schools during COVID in blue states like California and Illinois went straight to DEI programming. That money would have been better off lit on fire because at least it would have kept people warm instead of making our children hate each other. So the fact that this is considered, a core element of school right now, they have our children for 7 or 8 hours a day. Why are they spending so much time on identity politics? Why are we not focused on reading, writing, and arithmetic?
Well, and as a result of school DEI programs, they've bloated administrative budgets. I know at the congressional hearing, a chart was presented showing the rising growth of administrative staff compared to teachers and classrooms between 2000 and 2019. Administrative staff rose 88%. While student and teacher growth was up only 8%. So why and how did that happen?
It's a lot of middle managers. It's a lot of administrative staff, DEI officials, et cetera. But I think it really underscores the point that the money's not getting into classrooms. And I think part of that problem is that it's coming from the federal government. He who pays the piper calls the tune. And so when our tax dollars go to the federal government, obviously they skim money off the top for themselves, but then they send it back out to the states with a lot of strings attached. There's a lot of reporting that goes along with that. There are expectations for, elementary schools to have Title IX officers, things like that. And so, yeah, that money is going to management rather than to teacher salaries. And we're putting huge amounts of expectations on teachers, forcing them to be gender transition counselors, emotional support animals, punching bags. But the teachers are hired to be a math teacher, to be an English teacher. And so it's placing our teachers in a really untenable spot, as well as obviously not helping our children actually learn.
So school choice, is that an alternative, a good solution?
I think it's a terrific idea because then people can vote with their feet. If they go to a private school and they're not happy with the quality of education that they receive, they can leave. I mean, I think that's a terrific built-in accountability measure. Last year, actually, we left our private school because we were unhappy with what our kids were learning. My husband is homeschooling our kids now. We consider that a better use of our time and our money than to have our kids and to have to spend several hours every day unprogramming them from everything that they learned at school. And so for families to know how their children learn and what environments they thrive in and what comports with their family values, I think is something that gives parents a lot of dignity in this process.
And Nicole, we have a large international audience, so tell us about the influence of China on American education through the financing and influence of what your organization calls little red classrooms. So what difference is that making?
We were astonished to discover this about 2 years ago. We first started looking into the Thomas Jefferson School for Science and Technology, which is based in Fairfax, and I identified about $1 million in overseas funding coming from CCP-linked entities. After we dug into this and flagged it for Governor Youngkin, we then thought, well, if this is happening here, is this happening elsewhere? And over the course of about a year, filing dozens of public records requests, we identified that 143 districts around the country in 34 states, including 20 near military bases, had accepted teachers, money, curriculum, or other programming from the Chinese government. And so that to us raises a number of concerns, both about what our children are learning and who has access to the data and student information that our schools collect. So I think this merits significant investigation.
Indoctrination rather than education. Okay, there's much more to discuss here, but we're out of time. So if people want to get a hold of your organization, how do they do that?
Our website is defendinged.org. People can submit tips to us, flag things for us on social media, because we love to report out about what's going on in American schools.
Okay, Nicole Neily of Parents Defending Education, thank you for sharing your time and insights.
Thank you.